Hello again everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to be heading out in the Aeroplane Heaven North American P-51D Mustang once again. This isn't just any Mustang though, we've modded the aircraft rather considerably. We have essentially all new sounds, an all new flight model, an all new engine model. Really here we are just making use of the beautiful visual model that Aeroplane Heaven provides, and modding the aircraft in the areas where the product tends to fall somewhat short. So as far as the aircraft sounds go, we've swapped out the Aeroplane Heaven P-51 sounds with the default Asobo P-51 sounds. A considerable improvement, as you'll hopefully have noted there during the introduction. And as far as the flight model and engine modifications go, both of those are free, courtesy of Echo Mike Delta. You can find his work freely available over on flightsim.to. As usual, I'll leave a link down in the video description below. For anyone that is familiar with his work, or indeed his YouTube channel, which goes by the name of Flight Model Review, you'll know that he certainly puts the work in, and that definitely shows here with the handling characteristics of the updated P-51. Anyway, the aim of our video today is not to review the aircraft necessarily, it's really just to have some fun with the Mustang, enjoy the aircraft for what it is. We're currently back on the ground at Wanaka on New Zealand's South Island, and we're going to be making a short hop northbound up the shores of Lake Wanaka towards Makarora. Makarora has a really challenging little airstrip, so we're going to carry out a stop and go there with the P-51, and then we'll return home towards Wanaka. Lots of external shots for you in the video today, again so that you can enjoy both the beautiful visual model as well as the enhanced sounds. As always, I do hope you find the flight to be both interesting and of course good fun. If you do, then please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. So here we are then in the cockpit of our modded Mustang. We're on the ground at Wanaka as we discussed, and once again no visual differences here between this version of the aircraft and the default Aeroplane Heaven version of the P-51. It's the sounds and the flight model that we've adjusted here on the aircraft. And again, this is not intended necessarily to be a technical breakdown of the product, we're just going to be having some fun out in the Mustang, certainly putting the aircraft through its paces, and of course enjoying the beauty of the P-51D here as we go. So with that in mind, running through the pre-start checks, the park brake is selected on, flaps are selected up, the carb ram air control is set through to filtered, and the carb hot air control is set through to normal. For the fuel levels, I believe a little bit of a bug, we have to select the battery master on here first before we can read the fuel gauges. So we'll just wait until those are reading correctly. We should see about 25 US gallons in each main tank. And sure enough, showing about 25 gallons there on the left. Same there on the right. The auxiliary fuel tank, that should be empty. We are indicating empty. And you may have noticed during the introduction we do have the drop tanks fitted here to the aircraft, but those are both empty as well. So given our current fuel configuration, the elevator trim tab can stay neutral for the takeoff. The rudder trim tab should go through 6 degrees out to the right, but we're going to leave that neutral. Again, I just find that a little bit easier here for the takeoff. Battery master is selected on, the generator master can go on as well. Radiator coolant shutter is set through to automatic, and same there for the oil cooler shutter. The start will crack the throttle 1 inch. Mixture should be set through to idle cutoff, but we're going to go through to full rich here for the start. Prop lever is set fully forward. The fuel selector will come onto the main left hand tank for the start, and the fuel shutoff is selected on. Fuel boost pump is selected on. We'll prime the engine for about 3 to 4 seconds. Ignition can go through to both. And we'll uncage the starter. Just checking the prop area. No one's around. Clear prop. And we'll engage the starter. So nice plumes of smoke there as our Packard Merlin roars into life. We can cage up the starter once again. Mixture will just bring back now to auto rich. And the fuel boost pump can go off. Quick glance here as well, the oil pressure looking good. Oil temperature coming up there as well. So for the warm up we can come through to 1300 RPM, we'll just come all the way back on the stick here before we do so. So power is set, oil temperature we're looking for at least 40 degrees Celsius. Before we head off we've got about 50 degrees there currently. Altimeter, the current QNH is 2980.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1
That's giving us 1,200 feet, which concurs more or less with the aerodrome elevation. Artificial horizon is uncaged. And now that the engine's nicely warmed up, obviously that took quite a bit less time than would probably be realistic, but we can come back to 1,000 RPM. So we do have a good start here on our Packard Merlin, things nicely warmed up now. We can make our way out towards the runway, which is just off the left wing. We're going to be taking the grass runway for our departure today. And initially we'll depart out towards the east. So we'll head out towards the runway, we'll carry out the run-up en route, and I'll come back to you again once we're ready for the departure. Okay, so we now have ourselves lined up here on the southeasterly runway. We'll just quickly run through our before takeoff checks. So for the flight controls, just visually confirming those are full free and in the correct sense. Prop lever is set through to high RPM. The flaps, we'll take 20 degrees here on the flaps. It's a fairly short takeoff run off the grass runway here at Wanaka, particularly for the P-51. So we'll just wait for the flaps to run out. They are visually confirmed, set there on the left, and same there on the right. Gun sight is selected off. We'll take the landing light on, same there as well for the fuel boost pump. And finally we can close up the canopy here, head to the takeoff. So canopy is closed and locked, park brake off. Initially we'll come fully back on the stick, and same full right there on the rudder, just for the early stages of the takeoff. Reading in the throttle, we'll set 55 inches on the manifold pressure for our takeoff run. So power is set, temperatures and pressures looking good. And we can just start easing off on that rudder input now as the airspeed builds. Easing off on the back pressure as well on the stick. So tail coming up. And just gently increasing that back pressure. P-51D lifting off the ground. We do have a positive climb. We'll tap the brakes. We can bring the gear up. And we'll just hold the flaps and the power setting here till we're up through 500 feet. There's 500, so we'll start retracting the flaps. And for the climb power setting, we're looking for 46 inches on the manifold pressure and 2,700 RPM. So climb power is set, we'll retract that last stage of flap. Fuel boost pump can come off, and landing light is selected off. So we'll turn on to our first heading, that's a heading of 286. Out towards waypoint 1, which is a small island on the water of Lake Wanaka itself. So for now, just turning out towards the northwest. You can see the airfield there off our 10 o'clock position. And you can see Lake Wanaka, albeit a fairly hazy day here, but the lake itself just off the nose. We'll keep the aircraft fairly low level here today, so we'll come back to our cruise power setting now. We want 42 inches and 2,400 RPM. So power looking good, temperatures and pressures looking good. We'll get the P-51 trimmed out here for the cruise.
And a quick glance here as well at our fuel gauges. So we've got about 25 gallons still there on the left, down to around 15 gallons there now on the right. So we'll switch over to the left main tank. And we can continue here out towards the lake. So we're nicely established here now in the cruise on a heading of 286 degrees. Pretty much got the aircraft trimmed out here for strain level, up to around 3,500 feet. As discussed, waypoint 1 is a small island here out in the water of Lake Wanaka. We've got a slightly larger island here off the nose. Our island should be just behind that. We could actually cut the corner here slightly, head off at our 1 o'clock. You can see we can just follow the water there out towards the northwest. But we'll continue on our flight plan for now. Heading of 286, it's an 11-mile leg. We're doing 270 miles an hour here currently, so around 250 knots, about 4 miles a minute. So it should take us around 3 minutes here to get overhead the island. We've been flying for about a minute and a half so far. And sure enough, you can see waypoint 1 here, just coming up off the left of the nose. That's our island there down in the water. So we'll stay on heading for now. Next heading out towards destination of Makarora is going to be a heading of 353. And once we're heading out towards the north, we'll throw the Mustang around a little bit more, have some fun. The landing over at Makarora should be good fun as well. That's quite a challenge for the aircraft. Definitely not an airstrip you'd be looking to land the P-51D at in reality, but I think it's going to make for a really nice challenge here today. You'll see what I mean as we approach the field. So slightly hazy conditions here today in New Zealand. Not really allowing us to enjoy the scenery here to its fullest, but nevertheless still absolutely spectacular here in the sim. And overall, whilst I wouldn't say it's one of my favourite aircraft, the Aeroplane Heaven P-51D actually really enjoyable with the updated sound set and of course the updated flight modelling. The sound set is courtesy of the Asobo P-51, so you will need to have that purchased and installed as well to switch the sounds out. Which of course in effect adds to the cost of the Aeroplane Heaven P-51. The flight model update on the other hand is completely free, well worth checking out. That's available over on flightsim.to. And as usual, I'll leave a link down to that in the video description below. Just come up slightly again here on the prop. We're slightly low on our RPM. Building up quite a bit of speed here now as well. We're up to around 300 miles an hour. And another quick check here of our fuel states. Approaching about 20 US gallons now there in the left tank. So Makarora is about another 24 miles out towards the north. Again, doing roughly nearly 5 miles a minute now, so we're looking at around 5 to 6 minutes here until we're overhead the field. And currently just coming up about 10 minutes past 2. So expecting to arrive around 14:15 local. Let's head off towards the shoreline. We'll take the Mustang low level initially. Again, I wasn't planning on this being a technical breakdown of the aircraft, but undoubtedly the flight model is significantly better, particularly once airborne. Still a bit of a challenge to get the aircraft off the runway in a reasonably ordered fashion, which has always been the case with the Aeroplane Heaven P-51, but as I say, once airborne the aircraft handles, I would say, much more authentically, and certainly as well performs much closer to the numbers than the P-51D was previously. Up to around 300 knots then. That's full aileron deflection out to the right, so you can see the roll rate pretty reasonable there. And a bit of a break here in the hills, that leads off to another lake out towards the east. I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce the name of the lake there. I know someone has very kindly pointed out the name in the past. The best of times though, it's not easy to get these names right. Certainly try my best here for the video today. And as ever, New Zealand looking absolutely resplendent, even with our rather hazy day. Once again, just a really enjoyable experience here in the sim. So just approaching the shores here of Lake Wanaka, out towards the north. We've got about another 2 minutes to run here currently. We can just follow the river now out towards our 12 o'clock, and that'll take us in towards the Makarora airstrip. Doing a little bit of research here ahead of the video, just trying to get a feel for the pronunciation here of Makarora. Actually, apparently the town is home to one of the smallest schools on the planet. Apparently there's only 9 students in the school. Well, that was rather interesting. But of course today we're here to check out the airstrip, and again that's going to make for a pretty interesting landing in just a moment's time. It's a pretty short strip, it's also very hemmed in terms of the tree line. We're going to have to be very accurate on our aircraft placement here during the landing. We've also got some obstacles at the threshold of the runway. And once again, the Aeroplane Heaven P-51, not the easiest aircraft to land at the best of times. So trying to get it down on the Makarora strip is going to be really good fun if nothing else. I think we've got the strip coming up just off the nose, just out to the left here of the spinner. We'll do a fly past so that you can get a good feel for the strip. We'll come in nice and low, then we'll break off to the left, back for a left-hand pattern back onto the runway. So building up some speed here in the dive. Max speed with the drop tanks fitted is 400 miles an hour. So here's the runway. You can see we've got quite a few obstacles on the approach path. Okay, so we'll break off to the left, coming off the throttle as we do so, letting that speed reduce. We can take the gear below 170 miles an hour, but we'll just hold off on doing that here until we're established on our downwind. So continuing to come back off the throttle, we'll hold the car beat for now. Runway just off the left wing, looking pretty good in terms of our positioning. We'll take the gear down. And running through our downwind checks, the brakes are checked and off, undercarriage is down, mixture set through to fully rich. Fuel boost pump is selected on. In terms of our fuel quantities, showing slightly more there in the right hand main, so we'll come back onto the right hand main for the approach and landing. Flight instruments are checked, we'll take the landing light on. Harness is secure. We'll roll back in towards the runway and start configuring the flaps here as we do so. Speed looking good for now. Ordinarily we'd want around 120 miles an hour down fine approach, but we're going to come right back towards 100 miles an hour, just to make sure we're not carrying any excess speed as we come over the runway. Unfortunately though, we are going to have to carry just a little bit of excess altitude to make sure we clear those obstacles. So looking good now on the speed. There's landing flap. In terms of our finals checks, pitch is set fully fine, undercarriage is down, flaps are set. Landing clearance not required, the runway was checked visually clear, and the runway just coming into view now. We'll sidestep the P-51 just to give us a little bit more forward visibility. So right rudder, a little bit of left aileron to counter. Almost hanging the aircraft on the prop here, with our speed right back at 100 miles an hour. And we'll actually come off the throttle a little bit early here as well, just to ensure we don't float too far down the runway. So straightening ourselves up, holding the P-51 off. There's touchdown, quite a long touchdown there, so braking quite aggressively. Fully back on the stick to keep the tail on the ground. And bring the aircraft to a stop with a reasonable amount of distance to spare. We'll open up the canopy. And again, just braking, getting ourselves nice and slow. We'll unlock the tail wheel. And we can swing ourselves around. Okay, so we now have the P-51D turned around, lined up here for a southerly departure. Just running through the before takeoff checks once again. The flight controls have been checked. For the flaps, we have 20 degrees selected. Landing light is selected on, fuel boost pump is selected on. We can close up the canopy once again. Part brake off, and as before, fully back on the stick, full right rudder. This time we're going to come all the way through to 60 inches. On the manifold pressure, with it being an incredibly short runway. So power is set, temperatures and pressures are checked. Just starting to feel the rudder coming alive. Easing off on the back pressure as well on the stick. Just getting light on the wheels. And getting the P-51D airborne. And just about scraping our way there out of Makarora. So we do have a positive climb. Once again we'll tap the brakes, bring in the gear. Going back now towards our climb power setting. So 46 inches and 2700 RPM. So definitely a bit of a squeeze there, getting both in and out of the airfield, but again, really good fun, nice little challenge in the Mustang. Certainly not something you'd want to try with such a beautiful vintage aircraft in the real world. But that's why we like to sim, so we can have some fun, try out a few things that we might not otherwise get to try. So speed looking good, bringing in those flaps. And we have the aircraft clean, fuel boost pump can go off. Landing light is off. And once again, no need to climb here, so we'll just come straight back to our cruise power setting. We'll go with 42 inches. There's 2600 RPM. So of course all we need to do here to get ourselves home is fly our reciprocal headings. So we're looking for 173 out towards the first island that we came across over Lake Wanaka. Nicely established here now on the cruise, again doing around 260 miles an hour here over the ground. So cracking along quite nicely, we'll just make our way over the lake, back towards our home airfield. Okay, so we're just coming overhead our island once again. We'll turn on to a heading of 106 to take us back home. And this time we'll just cut in behind this ridgeline rather than climbing over the top. So again, very much enjoying the aircraft overall. It would be nice if Aeroplane Heaven had given the Mustang a few further tweaks as they did with the Spitfire. They updated the Spitfire's sound set as well as a few other features on the aircraft, and I was expecting to see the same with the P-51, but it doesn't seem to have received quite as much love. But certainly with this flight model update, and if you do have the Sobo P-51 sounds, then as you can see for yourselves, you can make a fairly decent P-51 out of the combination overall. Certainly we're still not looking at anything that's on a par with, for example, the A2A P-51 or of course the DCS P-51, but it's a reasonably nice Warbird option now with the Microsoft Flight Simulator. And again, good fun to fly overall. I've certainly had a fun time thus far. Now all we've got to do is get ourselves back on the ground in Wanaka in a reasonably safe fashion. We've got the town of Wanaka off at 2 o'clock. The airstrip should be more or less off the nose, where the ridgeline here comes down out from the south. The airfield buried away somewhere just behind that. We'll get our downwind checks done now. We can carry out another low pass over the field, back in for a traffic pattern. So the brakes are checked and off. We'll hold the undercarriage. Mixture once again is set through to fully rich. Fuel boost pump is selected on. Them's our fuel quantities, about 5 US gallons now there on the left, so we'll come back onto the right main. Flight instruments are looking good. We'll have to hold the landing light for now. And our harness once again is secure. So you can see Wanaka now quite clearly off the right wing. And we should come visual with the field in just a moment's time. We'll just come slightly further out towards the south, making sure we put the field off the left of the aircraft. Visual now with the main runway. We'll land on the grass runway again. It's slightly shorter, so again a little bit more of a challenge, but we'll make a low pass here down the hardened runway. So just giving 42 inches for now, 2700 RPM. And same as we did before, we'll brake off to the left, come back in for a left-hand pattern. That's going to keep us as well here, clear of the terrain. Up to around 300 miles an hour. And we'll make a nice low pass. Straight down the runway. So once again, braking off to the left, reducing our power, letting that speed fall off. There's the airfield. You can just about make out the grass runway there out towards the east. All the way back off the power, that speed's picked up quite a bit now, so we'll take some flap. Give ourselves a little bit more drag, and again help get that speed below 170 miles an hour before we take the gear. Slightly wide here for the downwind. Obviously that's going to make things a little bit easier in terms of getting ourselves configured. So downwind checks are out of the way, speed is good, we'll take the gear down. And we'll try and get a slightly more refined landing out of the aircraft this time, since we've got a few less restrictions in terms of our approach. Gear is indicating down. We'll start our turn back in towards the runway. Once again, just continue to take the flaps here as we do so. And this time we're looking for around 120 miles an hour down final approach. So flaps are set, pitch is full fine, undercarriage is down. And once again the runway check clear, no need for a landing clearance. Just coming back up on the throttle to maintain that speed. And it's a little bit tricky here to identify the grass runway. Just coming visual with the markings now. Speed just a touch high, and once again we'll side slip the aircraft to aid with that forward visibility. Although I want to try and get a nice smooth touchdown out of the P-51, again we don't have a ton of runway here, so we're going to try and avoid floating the aircraft as much as we can. Over the threshold, back off the throttle, getting ourselves straightened up, getting a little bit of a float. There's touchdown. Not the best landing, not the worst. It's onto the brakes. As I say, a reasonable landing overall, could have been a little bit smoother. Just got a little bit twitchy after the touchdown. But we are safely down, back on the ground in the P-51. We'll just roll through here, let the aircraft slow up, and then we'll have to backtrack the runway back towards the parking area. Okay, so we're just backtracking the northwesterly runway currently. We'll unlock the tail wheel, get ourselves back in towards the apron. In the meantime, we can open up the canopy, and we can retract the flaps. So we'll just make our way back in towards the parking area. We'll get ourselves here pointed out towards the east, and that way we can enjoy the terrain here as we shut down. So for the airplane checks, the power is set, canopy is open. With the coolant controls, both shutters set to automatic. Flaps are selected up, trim is set through to neutral. Prop control is set fully forward, fuel boost pump is selected off. We'll lock up the tail wheel once again, and gently onto the brakes. So park brake is set, leaving the engine idling at 1000 RPM. We'll come up to 1500 RPM. And again, we'll just come fully back on the stick to help keep the tail of the aircraft down. There's 1500, mixture can go through to idle cutoff. And we do have a good cut there on the engine, throttle fully open. Close the throttle once again, ignition can come off. Electrical switches, we'll take the generator master off. Landing light is selected off. Electrical switching looking good. Once again the carb ram air control is set to filtered. And just working our way around the last of our cockpit switches. Fuel shut off is selected off. Take the battery master off. And that is the shutdown checklist complete.
So there you go, ladies and gents. I do hope you enjoyed our outing here in the modded Mustang. As we discussed during the flight, certainly the flight model updates available from Echo Mike Delta are well worth checking out if you currently own the aircraft. And the same is certainly true of the sounds. If you currently own both the Aeroplane Heaven P-51 as well as the default Asobo P-51, it's well worth switching out the sounds. They do actually transfer across very nicely. It's not too difficult to do. There are resources available online that highlight the process. And to my mind at least, the Asobo sounds do a much better job of recreating that wonderful Merlin growl overall. Whilst still not perfect, these modifications certainly go a long way towards improving the aircraft, and as I say, I really enjoyed our outing in the Mustang. Once again, if you did like the flight, then please consider giving the video a like. If you want to see more content from the channel, then please do consider subscribing as well. And if you would like to help support the channel, you can do so by becoming a channel member or patron. And on that note, a huge thank you to my channel members and patrons for all of your support. I do hope that all of you are having a great day wherever you are. Take really good care, and I will see you all again soon.